confusing news day with several stories breaking late today that we'll go over, including a lot of, I'll call them rumors, internet chatter. I'm not sure what to call it, social media speculation about the Brown University case. And hopefully by the end of the program, we'll have more for you on that. Story I got asked about the most today, not from anybody in a Green Bay diner, but from people in elite circles in politics, media, business, was about Susie Wiles. We talked about her interview with Vanity Fair, her interviews with Vanity Fair. And they certainly were all the talk of Washington and political world in the White House today. And I'll tell you in a little bit my theory on that. Secretary Hegseth took a lot of heat on Capitol Hill today, mostly from Democrats, but some from Republicans, said he would not release the full video of that so-called second tap strike. And Democrats unhappy with the briefing in general about the Caribbean mission. Governor Walz, Minnesota, under fire today for comments he's made related to that investigation. The FBI confirmed today that they did not have appropriate probable cause to raid Mar-a-Lago. Raid, some loaded word for some, but to go into Mar-a-Lago looking for classified documents that the president had. And J.D. Vance in Pennsylvania today talking about the economy and sniping back and forth with the governor of Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro. And the New York Times continues to cover the death of Rob Reiner quite extensively. The Reiners and their son was supposed to be in court today, but was not able to be there for health reasons. And so people continue to report on that. Okay, on Susie Wiles. Again, still a little confusion. The author of the article, Chris Whipple, has not done any interviews yet. I believe he's doing one on CNN tonight, and we'll see if he brings with him any of the audio. Susie Wiles went on Twitter today and said, denounced the story for being inaccurate, but didn't deny the quotes. And it appears, according to some reporting, that Whipple has audio. So if he plays audio of her quotes and the quotes are accurate and they're not out of context, it'll maybe produce a little bit of a chapter. But maybe the most interesting thing is the level of support Susie Wiles got today. The vice president, in his remarks at his event in Pennsylvania, many cabinet members, many senior White House officials, many members of Congress, all weighing in to talk about how great Susie Wiles is. Don Jr. On Twitter said he didn't normally comment on his father's team, but had a super long tweet about how great Susie Wiles is, how loyal she is, etc. If Susie Wiles' goal in doing all those Vanity Fair interviews was to get a reminder of how much everyone on her father's team loves and respects her, well, she succeeded there. I have to say, I'm very flattered by this. People often want my opinion, particularly for stories like this. And typically, in a case like this, well, not typically, this is what happened today. In person, when I was out and about, on the phone, by text, by email, people say, Mark, can you explain the Susie Wiles thing? And these often questions today came from some of the smartest and most experienced people in American politics, government, business, very savvy in the ways of the world. And they'd say, Mark, how do you explain Susie Wiles, a low profile, known for running a tight ship, being collegial, not known as doing very many interviews, certainly not with liberal publications like Vanity Fair? They'd say, how do you explain this? And I would give my explanation, I get consistent throughout the day, based on knowing Susie Wiles a little bit and knowing a lot about how she operates. And they would listen to me after imploring me to, Mark, stop your day, stop making widgets or whatever it is you do for a living, and spend a minute's time telling me your theory because I'm interested. And to a person, they said, no, Mark, that's just wrong. After asking my view, they then told me my view was wrong. And often they would offer their view, and I didn't hear a single view I thought was smarter than mine or more likely to be accurate than mine. Now, maybe that's just the way of the world. If I didn't think my ideas were the best, I'd have different ideas. But I'll tell you what I think happened. I'm not sure. I've not talked to Susie Wiles today, but I'll tell you what I think happened. First of all, I don't think she's on her way out. Here's Exhibit A. The president did an interview with the New York Post specifically to refute the notion that Susie Wiles was lost favor. The thing she said about the president in the interviews that got the most attention was that he had the personality of an alcoholic. So here's the president's quotes from the New York Post. We put those up. He said this, exclusive interview with the New York Post. President Trump defended Susie Wiles in an exclusive interview with the Post Tuesday, saying she was right to tell Vanity Fair that he has an, quote, alcoholic's personality, and that he has confidence in Wiles to continue in her role. In an afternoon phone call, Trump said that he wasn't offended by his subordinate's word choice. And he says in the interview here, no, she meant that, you see, I don't drink alcohol. So everybody knows that, but I've often said that if I did, I'd have a very good chance of being an alcoholic. I've said that many times about myself. I do. It's very possessive personality, Trump said. A teetotaler who has frequently cited the 1981 death of his older brother, Fred, at the age of 42, of an alcohol-induced heart attack as his main impetus for abstinence. I have to tell you, I have two people I know who are recovering alcoholics, both of whom have made the same point. And it's basically, and of course, you may or may not know, I shouldn't say, of course, Susie Wiles' father is the football legend and legendary announcer, Pat Summerall, who's passed away, who also had alcoholism. And so she's very familiar with this personality trait. She's not saying he drinks. She's saying he has the personality manifestations that people who are alcoholics tend to have. Like many of the things in these interviews that are considered controversial, they're not wrong. They're just not the kind of things you say openly. It's a very wide-ranging interview. And so again, my explanation. Chris Whipple is the kind of the chronicler of White House chiefs of staff. That's been where he's made his bones. He's written a lot about it in one book, maybe more, I think more, where he writes about White House chiefs of staff. And I know that Susie Wiles has a great reverence for the responsibility of that office. Not that many people in American history have had the job. It's a very complicated job. Susie famously says she emphasizes the staff, not the chief. She's not Trump's boss. She's not Trump's taskmaster. But in fact, she tells Donald Trump more often than almost anybody in both the context of the campaign and of the White House when she thinks he's wrong. She's not an enabler, despite what some people have said. So I think my guess is she cooperated with this guy because he is the chronicler of James Baker and the chronicler of Ken Duberstein and other White House chiefs of staff who she respects. My guess, and this is a guess, folks, again, I share theories on two-way, and I try to label them as such. I do label those as. This isn't some reporting of mine. This is my theorizing. I think those interviews were not on the record. That's my guess, that she assumed they were off the record. Now, when I've offered that theory up to people today, they've said, well, if you're a pro, you can't assume off the record. Well, some people do, even savvy people. They do it with me. There are a lot of savvy people in Washington who know full well what off the record is, and that you cannot trust most reporters without a repetition, bookending anything you say. This is off the record. Say it. That was off the record. But some people trust certain reporters, and I think it's possible Susie Wiles trusted him. As to the question of whether this is Susie sending a signal that she's going to quit, or Susie's been on thin ice with Donald Trump, and she's sort of using this as a pretext, so when he fires her, she can blame it on the interview rather than the real reason. I just don't believe any of those things are true. Now, if while we're sitting here talking, an alert runs that Susie's resigning, again, nothing surprises me really, but I don't think so. And the fact that today, cabinet members, vice president, president, senior White House officials, Don Jr., all made public senators, all made public support of Susie. I just don't think that's what they'd be doing if the word was around that she was headed out the door, either by her own choice or by the president's wishes. So still some mystery here. Maybe when Whipple does his interview on Anderson Cooper tonight, there'll be some more clarity. But I don't think she's going anywhere. And I also think, as interesting as this is to many people, including many people in my life, and probably to some of you, if we all got in a charter plane and we went to Green Bay tomorrow and we went to a diner and we sort of went table to table and said, hey, what do y'all think of this Susie Wiles things? I can tell you what they'd say. They wouldn't have any idea what the Susie Wiles thing is. So that's that. If you want to know my level of interest in this, not that high. I know a lot of you will think I should be interested. It doesn't have anything to do with the real lives of real people. There's lots of stories going on in the world that are more important, but I've had to spend a lot of my day on this. So when we get to the conversation, if you want to be in on the conversation and ask about Susie Wiles, I will feign great interest because that's my responsibility. But I don't get why people are so consumed with it. It is an interesting story, though. She basically put smack in the Vanity Fair interview, and people, I see why people are interested, but I don't feel it myself. Okay, in a moment, our great guest will be here, Emily Jashinsky, my colleague at MK Media. host of After Party, a show I love being on. And Julian Epstein, former Democrat House Judiciary Committee Chief Counsel, will be here. And then later in the program, we're going to learn something new. I won't tell you what it is, but we're going to learn something new. And we'd love, again, your participation. Raise your hand if you want to get in on the conversation. All right, quick word from a sponsor, then our guests, and then we'll run through the rest of the big topics. We'll start with more conversation, of course, about Susie Wiles. Right now, if you're looking for holiday gifts, look no further than Cozy Earth. They make the softest, best fitting of everything. They make great sheets and towels, blankets, the bubble cuddle blanket. You've heard me talk about it before. And great pants. The pants are award-winning. You heard me yesterday read a letter from one of our happy, satisfied customers about the front zippered pocket. Big fan of the front zippered pocket. Anyway, I'm saving amazing 40% off everything on the Cozy Earth website right now. Viscose made from bamboo, extraordinarily soft and comfortable. Everything, clothes, towels, sheets, blankets, etc. Go to CozyEarth.com, use the promo code TWOWAY for 40% off. And if you get the post-purchase survey, please tell them you heard about Cozy Earth here on TWOWAY tonight. Again, give the gifts of comfort that lasts beyond the holidays, carries into a cozy new year. CozyEarth.com, promo code TWOWAY. Thank you for your attention to that matter. Ladies and gentlemen, a man who's no stranger to controversy, but he likes it that way, Mr. Julian Epstein. Julian, welcome in.
I think I'm unmuted. Mark,
Yes,
thanks
sir.
for having me. I enjoy the show. I watch it regularly.
We're really happy to have you here. Tell folks what you do now, and if they're interested in your content, where they can get it.
Best place to get the content is on X. After leaving the Judiciary Committee, I had started my own public affairs firm, which did well, and we're in the middle of a sale of it right now.
Oh, amazing. Who's going to buy it, the Saudis or the Qataris?
No, a UK firm.
UK firm.
has done it. It's called APCO. You probably know it.
Sure. Are you being paid in Cadbury bars or British pounds?
I'm under strict non-disclosure when it comes to Cadbury bars.
Understood. Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. Do you know Emily?
I know. I think I've been on a show or two with Emily.
Yeah.
I think she's great. I'm a fan of hers. Yeah. I always learn something when I listen to her.
Emily and I have a policy not to say anything serious. So it's a problem when a little girl falls down a well. Really screws us up. Emily, welcome in. Are those earmuffs or headphones?
These are headphones. They're heavy duty, but they will cancel the noise around me, which is all I can ask for.
Are you at a Ramones concert right now?
I'm not, unfortunately. I'm just in my office, but you never know here in Washington, D.C. when the noise flares.
Okay. Well, welcome in, Emily. I tell folks where they can hear your show.
We are at After Party on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, and then SiriusXM 2 to 3 p.m. live right after the great Megyn Kelly on the Megyn Kelly channel. All
right. Well, welcome in. Very happy to have you both here. Very grateful to you both for making time. Let's go to the news, as Warner Wolf might say if he were saying something different. Then let's go to the videotape, which is this Susie Wiles story. First of all, we'll put up again the Vanity Fair photo. Number two, Sam. This has become iconic already. I didn't this morning. I got criticized for not saying who was in the photo. Left to right, as they say. That's Caroline Leavitt, seated, the vice president, standing over the vice president, Marco Rubio, the simultaneous Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. Then that's Dan Scavino, standing behind Susie Wiles, seated at the table. Behind or next to Dan is James Blair, and then, of course, the estimable Stephen Miller. And this is a power group at the White House. That group runs a lot of stuff. It's a very savvily booked photo because while there are other powerful people in the administration, that's a big power group. As I said earlier, lots of Susie tweeted and slammed the Vanity Fair piece as disingenuously framed and a hit piece. Caroline Leavitt spoke in support of Susie. Number 4, please.
Is unfortunately another example of disingenuous reporting, where you have a reporter who took the chief of staff's words wildly out of context, did not include the context those conversations were had within. And then further, I think the most egregious part of this article was the bias of omission that was clearly present. And we see a lot of this when dealing with the media every day. You will leave out important context, leave out comments and facts. You know, many people in this building spoke with that reporter, and those comments were never included in the story, probably because it didn't push this false narrative of chaos and confusion that the reporter was clearly trying to push. So what I'll say about our chief of staff, as you've seen from not just myself, but also the entire cabinet, and a groundswell of support from people on Capitol Hill who don't even work in this building, about how incredible Susie Wiles has been to President Trump. And he's been able to accomplish so much because of his leadership and his tenacity, but also because of Chief of Staff Wiles's leadership and her ability to effectuate his agenda.
Okay, I don't know if Martians can speak English, but Emily, follow me here. If a Martian came down to Earth and heard that, and you said to the Martian, do you think the person who's being talked about there is about to be fired? What would you say? No, seriously. In other words, if you didn't know anything about Susie Wiles or the president or anything, but just heard that, would you say she's talking about someone who's on thin ice and about to be fired or not?
No, I mean, I wouldn't. And as soon as I saw the buzz about this Vanity Fair story, and before I started to really plug into the conversation about it, I thought for sure this was going to be a very tense moment for Susie Wiles. I'm sure it's been tense, but everyone over the course of the day raced to stand by Susie Wiles, despite the inexplicable fact that Susie Wiles seemed to be speaking very candidly with a left-wing reporter who clearly does not support the MAGA project. The photography in this series has gotten so much attention from people on the right, particularly the picture of Caroline Leavitt that they ran with in the middle of, I forget whether it was part 1 or part 2 of the article, but just intentionally unflattering, clearly part of the editorial framing of the article, which if you're on the left, it makes sense. Of course, this is how you're going to frame an article. But on the other hand, it's inexplicable to so many people, unfathomable. This was the scuttlebutt on the right all day, which was how did Susie Wiles, who in the greatest stroke of irony is seen as a Trump whisperer because of her gatekeeping abilities, because of her abilities to be the person who doesn't let all of those wacky, say gateway pundit pieces get onto the president's desk like they were in 2016. How is she the one that gets suckered by a reporter?
Yeah.
Maybe Chris Whipple is close with Jared and Ivanka. That's possible. Jared has recommended his book. Kushner's recommended his book on chiefs of staff in the past.
Yep.
So it's possible that he had some level of built-in trust because of that relationship with Kushner. But otherwise, I think your explanation that possibly some of these conversations were either implicitly off the record or, off the record where then the conversation meanders back into on the record, but nobody knows exactly at what point it became on the record.
Yeah.
That's the best guess I have
Yeah.
because Wiles is seen as a genius for her discipline.
Yeah.
And if she was just yapping on the record about JD Vance being a conspiracy theorist, whatever, that would seem wildly undisciplined.
Right. All very well said. A couple things, and then I'll bring Julian. First of all, Susie Wiles, if you don't know this, you should. She's not an outlier in this White House in terms of her view of the media. She thinks the media is liberal and hostile to Republicans and not on the up and up. So she's not like she's a captive to the Vanity Fair ethos, and she couldn't care less about going to the Oscar party or anything like that. The second is, I can tell you for a fact that with few exceptions, and I think Musk may be one of them, many of the people who are Susie Wiles is quoted as speaking negatively about are people she has great respect and affection for. She loves the vice president, huge respect for the vice president, loves the president, huge respect for the president. And let's see what the audio tapes, if there are audio tapes released, let's see what they show. But I'll give you an example of how this can happen. Right. And if Susie's critique is correct, reporter's talking to a source and says, what do you think of Emily's show? I love Emily's show. It's fantastic. Reporter asks again, some people don't really like Emily's show. Do you really think Emily's show is good? Oh, I love Emily's show. I think Emily's got one of the best shows going. Some people, though, are down on Emily, think the show's not as good as it used to be. No. I've been listening to it and it's really good. Finally, the reporter asks again, and the source gets a little exasperated. Hey, Mark, what do you think of Emily's show? Is it the best show going out there? Is there any show better than Emily's show? And the source, frustrated, wants to end the thing, says, are there shows better than Emily's show? Sure. Emily's not the greatest show out there. And then you take that quote and you say, what does Mark think of Emily's show? Quote, well, it's not the best show out there. And then the reader sees that with a tone like, well, Mark's trashing Emily's show, even though I defended it 3 times. That's my theory, is that,
Yeah,
did you
agree.
take these quotes? Did she say he's a conspiracy theorist? Yeah. Now, maybe she didn't even say it on the record, but I could see her saying that on the record if she said 42 nice things about him first. Julian, you're as experienced in the ways of reporters and sourcing and on and off the record and principles and all that. What's your theory about how this happened?
Well, I'm surprised, like Emily was. I mean, Matt Walsh, of course, rather the former National Security Advisor, Walsh got in a lot of trouble for speaking to the editor of Atlantic magazine. So sort of like these high-placed White House officials talking to notably left-wing media. That was in sort of the unvarnished way in which she did was sort of a big surprise to me. I think I don't. My guess is she just had a sort of a far-reaching conversation, as you were indicating, that went on for probably hours.
But again, the guy says it's 11 conversations, so
yeah,
it's not
numerous conversations, and I don't doubt the cherry picking notion.
Yeah.
Although we've all seen the news media do it, and I think particularly the anti-Trump news media do that. So that's not a surprise to me. I don't think a lot of people care about this. I think this is a parlor game, but I mean, I think there are some things that are sort of that are takeaways here. I mean, regardless of what the context was, and regardless of whether things were cherry picked, she did say, the alcoholic personality, which to me is an indication that somebody is compulsive and self-destructive. You can put as much context as you want around that. I think that's sort of notable. The notion that she says that Trump is on a retribution tour. Regardless of what else is surrounding that, that's significant. The fact that she says the OMB director is a zealot, the fact that she says that the vice president believes in conspiracy theories. Now, if you took this in any other administration, it would be, wow, the chief of staff is saying this about the people that surround the president. That's quite remarkable.
Bonker. You can say bonkers. It's bonkers.
Yeah, but so what happened in this case was this complete circle the wagons effort by the Republican establishment on the Hill and in the White House and in sort of the punditocracy. And the takeaway I have from that is that this is getting into Biden territory. I mean, I wrote a piece in March of 23 saying Biden should not run. He's not competent to run. We had all the signs about it in 2021. And I was excoriated for that. And you had this lobotomized groupthink in the Biden years, that whatever Biden was saying he was competent for a second term, the economy was doing great, inflation was transitory. There is this sort of groupthink where people just check out and outsource their legitimate criticism. And I think the danger for Trump with this groupthink thing that's sort of taking course in the second year of his term is that there are sort of a lot of problems. I mean, I admire how aggressive Trump has been and how much he's tried to accomplish in the first year. But there is also a lot of trophy chasing. So if you look at Gaza, for example, Hamas is reconstituting in Gaza, and that 21-point peace plan, a lot of that has sort of gone out the window because I think the administration hasn't sufficiently followed up on that, regrettably. On the economy, what Trump seems to be, and I'll draw the thread here. On the economy, Trump seems to be saying, "Oh, look how good the economy is," when in fact, although the economy is much better than it was under the Biden administration, a lot of voters are very negative on the economy right now. So he's sort of speaking against what the public feels on a day-to-day basis. And if you have this groupthink phenomena that you saw so quickly and work like clockwork with the Susie Wiles reaction, where it's just rally around the chief, no questions asked, no criticism, nothing to be seen here. When that translates into things that really do matter, that becomes something that I think becomes very self-destructive for the Republican Party.
The Politico has a piece with a bunch of blind quotes where people are not circling the wagons. They're saying, how could this have happened? What does this all mean? Here's someone who's got some advice for Susie Wiles, the person she's arguably the most critical of, the vice president. Here's the vice president in Pennsylvania today, responding to the piece number 5.
And the last thing I'll say is if any of us have learned a lesson from that Vanity Fair article, I hope that the lesson is we should be giving fewer interviews to mainstream media outlets. So with that, With that lesson internalized, I'm going to stop taking questions and just leave you with.
All right. The vice president was in Pennsylvania not to talk about Vanity Fair, but talk about the economy. Here he is, Money Sound Bites, number 17.
The average American family lost $3,000 of take-home pay through the terrible inflation of the Biden administration. In just 10 months of the Trump administration, the average American family has gained about $1,000 of take-home pay. Now that difference could not be starker. When Joe Biden was president for 4 years, he took $3,000 out of your pocket. And in just 10 months of the president's leadership, we have put $1,000 back in your pocket. That's what that means. And that's just the beginning, my friends. That is just the beginning. Because if you look at what we are doing every single day, you are going to have, and if this doesn't turn out to be true, I'll come back here and you can all tell me I'm wrong. But I'm telling you, it's going to be true. You are going to have middle-class Americans, middle-class Pennsylvanians, some of the best tax season in 2026 that you've ever had. Because if you look at no taxes on overtime, no taxes on tips, when we talk about no taxes on your auto loans if you buy an American-made car, now those are political words. I'm sure you've heard them on TV, but starting with tax season in just a couple of weeks, you're going to see that in your tax refund. That's what that means. More money in your pocket because you've got a president and a Congress that are fighting for you for a change, and that's exactly what it should be.
All right, that's served by Ohio's J.D. Vance. Here's Volley by Pennsylvania's Josh Shapiro, number 18.
I think it is insulting to the people of Pennsylvania that this guy shows up and lies to the good people of Pennsylvania and tries to convince them to unsee something they saw with their own eyes, rising prices at the grocery store and elsewhere. So I guess JD was afraid to upset his boss, and this is what you get, more lies here in Pennsylvania. Good people of Pennsylvania are pretty darn smart, and I know they'll reject JD's BS.
Julian's first, because I know you need to go soon. If that's the messaging for the midterms, leave aside a potential 2028 matchup. If that's the messaging for the midterms, who gets the better of that argument?
They both do badly because they're both pointing at the other person when both should be campaigning on a program to do things that matter to voters and the economy. It's completely true what J.D. Vance is saying, that the economy is much better than it was under Biden. But as I said before, most voters feel like the economy is still unsatisfactory to them because of interest rates, because of inflation, on down the line. So just saying the economy is a lot better than it was under Biden isn't going to cut it for most people. So, why they don't have a program that is aggressively about building new housing, using a free market model, dealing with healthcare, which the White House hasn't really leaned into, what the House Republicans are attempting to do on healthcare. Why they aren't articulating a sort of free market, the government isn't the solution, the government is the problem, like Reagan. Why they aren't articulating a real clear agenda that people can understand that's forward-looking is beyond me. As for Democrats, same thing. Democrats were the author of the unaffordability crisis. They, through government spending and regulation, sort of drowning the economy with cash that the economy didn't need in 2021 and 2022. They clearly have a big part of the responsibility of the inflation, the affordability crisis. And what are the Democrats looking to do again? They're looking sort of to do the same thing. They're looking to do more government handouts, more redistribution, more regulation and price controls of the housing market, the very things that brought us the affordability crisis. It sounds attractive to people that aren't very sophisticated. It sounds appealing because they have an agenda, but it's ultimately a program that's going to lead them nowhere. And what the Democrats should be doing is sort of going back to where they were a couple of generations ago or a generation ago and talking about building in a much more meaningful way. But I don't think the Democrats have the guts to stand up to the far left activist groups that want redistribution, identity politics, a bigger welfare state. So I think it's a sort of a pox on both houses. They are both missing a giant opportunity to articulate a really meaningful program from the political center that could work.
Julian, thank you for that. I know you got to go. Grateful to you for being here, and congratulations on your big sale, and we hope you'll come back.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thank you. All right, Emily, quick on you on the same question of the economy. Do either of those sound bites, do you think, speak to the people of Pennsylvania in a more helpful way for the midterms?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to depend a lot on where the anti-Trump sentiment is on midterm election day, because one of the things people have glossed over for a long time is how so many Trump voters and Republican voters during the Trump era, Virginia is a really good example, held their nose and voted for a Republican because they were so upset by the plans of the left at any given point. And again, Virginia, Glenn Youngkin 2020 is a very, very, very good example of that. And so if there's this sense of the left overreaching, and I would think of, a Jasmine Crockett type mood sweeping the Democratic Party at that time. If that's the case, if Republicans are successfully able to kind of pin Crocketism on the Dems, you can see how a fledgling Trump economy, which is still not great, might actually be able to pull ahead. On the other hand, for the Democrats, they have also benefited from suburban women, for example, but people in the suburbs in general holding their noses and voting Dem, even though they don't like the kind of socialist direction of the party that they see. They're unhappy with that because they really are unhappy with Trump. Right. So a lot of it, I think, depends on the national mood on midterm election day. I do expect in 2026 to start seeing more and more tariff carve-outs from the Trump administration, to feel like there's an immediate shot in the arm in people's personal family economics. Yeah. So I think we'll see a little bit more from. I don't think the economic situation will feel quite like it does right now on midterm election day.
Got it. All right, we're going to play with the format a little bit tonight because we've got another guest coming later and some other stories I want to get to. But let's take a question from Mitchell. Mitchell, welcome in. Unmute, tell folks who don't know where you are and your question for Emily.
Thank you for having me, calling in from Arizona. I wanted to talk about one piece of the Susie Wiles thing, which is a specific quote. He wants to keep blowing boats up until Maduro cries uncle, and people way smarter than me on that say that he will. So as far as I'm aware, this is the first time that anybody from the administration has just out and out said that the blowing up of drug boats is directly tied to the regime change. And
I noted that too. It's the quiet part out loud.
Yes.
But keep going.
So my question is nobody's really taken that club and started beating them with it yet. But at some point somebody will. And so in order to kind of cover for that, you basically have to either put a lot of effort into trying to keep the House to avoid a whole bunch of committees and hearings and all kinds of other stuff, or ratchet up the pressure on Venezuela and try and get it wrapped up before the midterms. Which one do you think they are going to spend more time and effort on?
So the second one is doing more to ratchet up to get him out. And what's the first? Try to win the midterms?
Put full bore effort into trying to maintain control of the House in the midterms.
Spoiler alert, they're going to do both. But Emily, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I think they're pretty confident, and reasonably so, that Maduro is going to cry uncle. I mean, again, like, I'm not somebody who's super in support of the way that they've prosecuted this conflict, but I think they know the odds. Like, what did they say about Zelensky? He doesn't have the cards. Maduro definitely doesn't have the cards. And so I think they know what they're likely looking at is surrender in Venezuela, and they can then go into midterm season saying they had a success. They successfully took down a commie in Venezuela, and that's what the Trump administration is about. It's about action. But to your point, Mitchell, and I think it's a really good one, are Democrats then able to come in and say, okay, these are war crimes, this is illegitimate, you're out there. I mean, I couldn't believe that Trump declared fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction yesterday, using that specific phrase, not because I don't think fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction, but they've been talking also about those boats being blown up in the Caribbean as weapons of mass destruction. And that is so, I mean, boy, are you skating really close to the edge of Americans' patience for foreign conflicts when you specifically start invoking weapons of mass destruction. So I think you're right that Democrats might get some fodder from this too.
Yeah, Mitchell, great question. And that quote, as I said, caught my eye, and I'm super curious to know whether that one was on the record, because there are things I could imagine her saying on the record under some circumstances, sort of, but that one I can't imagine saying on the record, and that's what leads me to believe, amongst the many things in the piece, that leads me to believe it wasn't meant to be on the record, because you wouldn't say that on the record for the exact reasons, Mitchell, you suggest. It's too much the quiet part out loud. So again, we'll see. Mitchell, great question. Thank you for that. Emily, I want to talk to you about a bunch of stuff here. The Fed, for instance, Wall Street Journal reporting, I'm reporting it as well, that the president's scheduled to meet Mr. Waller, a current Fed chair, tomorrow. President had previously said he knew he was going to pick for the Fed. He'd made his decision, but doesn't seem to be the case. And there's a story in Politico that says that Kevin Hassett, who some people said was the pick, including the Journal a few weeks ago, that he's got his detractors in the administration. Here's the Wall Street Journal story about the Waller interview. Trump sent to interview Fed's Christopher Waller for chair. President has indicated that Kevin Warsh and Kevin Hassett are the front runners to succeed Jerome Powell next year. I mean, it may not be Politico, but someone has a story with a bunch of people saying there's not a lot of faith among certain people in the administration for Hassett, that he hasn't been a big player as head of National Economic Council. Do you have any sense of where the president's headed on the Fed pick?
I am surprised to see this start getting public, because my guess, I'm not positive about it, my guess is that Trump does ultimately land on Kevin Hassett, because Hassett seems to have he checks off a lot of the boxes that matter so much to Donald Trump. So I'm going to be surprised if it doesn't end up being Kevin Hassett. At the same time, Kevin Hassett finding himself deep in Trump's circle, this is a years old story at this point, is surprising to people who have followed Kevin Hassett's career in and of itself. So I'm surprised that this has kind of bubbled into a public debate, but I think Trump will ultimately go with Hassett, just because, listen, Trump loves someone who is deferential to him.
Yeah.
And Hassett certainly has been, who is a convert to being deferential to him. You can definitely see that in Hassett, somebody who's kind of from the old right, comes over to MAGA, to Trumpism, who is good on TV. Trump probably sees that as a big plus. So I'll be surprised if they walk away from Hassett.
Yeah, I won't be surprised. I think this is a Politico story.
Oh.
Do you recognize that font?
Yeah,
Emily?
it's Politico.
Yeah. Trump officials privately raised doubts about Hassett for Fed chair. Hassett's critics say he has not been effective as head of the National Economic Council, playing little part in driving policies. The story says he's good on TV and Trump likes him on TV, but it basically says that's all he is. And I will tell you, he has many detractors, including some people heavily involved in the process. And you say he checks every box. There are two related boxes he doesn't check for some people. One is a lot of Trump's business friends don't think he's a strong figure. And the other box is people wonder whether he has the stature for the job, whatever that means. So I think that if you look at Trump's personnel history, if there's someone who's the front runner for a job and then questions are raised, there's doubts and he starts looking at other people, he rarely goes back to the first person. Sometimes he does, not never.
Interesting.
He rarely goes back. And now this is the third round, by my count, I may have missed one. It's the third round of people dumping on Hassett and saying he's not really the right guy for the job. And Trump sees that and then I think would worry, he's my guy, he'll do my bidding. But if things go bad, his friends will say, we told you so. And Donald Trump does not like to be told, I told you so. All right.
The internecine economic battles, it's so hard to know who wins that tug of war.
Every time. All right, let's get another quick sponsor in here. Looking for the right sponsor. Give me a moment. Don't rush me. Here it is. If you need life insurance, you can get a free quote. Our friends at ethos.com are giving you a free quote on life insurance. It's an online platform that makes getting life insurance both fast and easy to protect your family's future. You can do it in minutes, not over months. Go to ethos.com/two-way, ethos.com/two-way, and you can get a free quote. Ethos helps provide financial security. You can protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. You can get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. There's no medical exam required. Just answer a few health questions. Not a complicated process. It's all done 100% online. And again, you can get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. Get your free quote, ethos.com/two-way. Again, ethos.com/two-way. You think about the breadwinner in the family passes away, no ability to pay a mortgage, to pay rent, to pay tuition. There's an opportunity to protect your family. Again, go to ethos.com/two-way for a free quote. Emily, you still there? Did we lose Emily? Maybe we did briefly lose Emily. Okay, some more news I want to tell you about. The president announced today on Truth Social, confirmed by Caroline Levitt, that he's going to give a speech to the nation tomorrow at 9 o'clock, prime time. So Emily, question one, Fox will take it probably, but it's going to cut into Fox prime time. Any chance MSNBC and CNN take that live, do you think?
Well, this is the great mystery. I mean, he's done this. Well, this is maybe the second time that he's convened a very enigmatic primetime address during Trump 2.0. So I think actually it helps the case for those guys. I bet they're going to be prepped to take it because if the rumors start leaking, you know, about what it actually is 20 minutes beforehand, and it's significant, then they're going to be ready. But I don't know about you. I doubt that it's going to be significant because it just seems like the enigmatic announcements to me always feel like stunts. Like he's doing his very clever PR. And that's what my guess is.
Any chance the broadcast networks take it live? In the olden days, if the president of the United States was given a primetime address, ABC, CBS, and NBC would clear the decks and take it. Any chance they take it live?
I bet they'll be prepped, but I think we'll have a better idea like later tomorrow because I'm going to assume a hint of it leaks out. Do you remember the other one in Trump? I mean, time is.
I remember the concept that he was going to do it, but for the life of me, can't remember what it was. But I agree with you. It was a little anticlimactic, definitely.
Yes, exactly. So I bet they'll be prepped for it, but prepped right now. They're thinking no. If it's big enough, they'll be ready to do it.
Yeah. Here's the latest video. Well, no, let's talk about the Hegseth thing. Here's Secretary Hegseth talking on the Hill today about the boat strikes and the video that the Democrats are demanding he release, the so-called second tap. This is number 6, please.
Is the 22nd bipartisan briefing we've had on a highly successful mission to counter designated terrorist organizations, cartels, bringing weapons meaning drugs, to the American people and poisoning the American people for far too long. So we're proud of what we're doing, able to lay it out very directly to these senators and soon to the House, but it's all classified. We can't talk about it now. We're also going to tomorrow allow the HASC and SASC to see the unedited video of the September 2nd, alongside with Admiral Bradley, who has done a fantastic job, has made all the right calls, and we're glad he'll be there to do it. But in keeping with long-standing Department of War policy, Department of Defense policy, of course we're not going to release a top secret full unedited video of that to the general public. HASC and SASC and appropriate committees will see it, but not the general public.
So HASC and SASC are the Armed Services Committees in the House and Senate. And Emily, it sounds like very satisfying briefings. No unhappy customers could be left in the wake of Secretary Hegseth's briefing. Well, we found 2 unhappy customers at least. Here's one, a guy from Brooklyn, number 7, please.
Hey, good morning. Look, I reiterated my demand of Secretary Hegseth in front of all 100 senators that he allow every senator to see the unedited version, the unedited video of what happened on September 2nd. He refused. The administration came to this briefing empty-handed. That's the major question that we face. And if they can't be transparent on this, how can you trust their transparency on all the other issues swirling about in the Caribbean?
Okay, so Brooklyn's unhappy. Brooklyn's unhappy. That happens. People in Brooklyn are very demanding. Certainly, the folks in the good people in the Bronx, they certainly like the briefing that they got. Let's go to just a random person from the Bronx, number 8, please.
Are you satisfied with the answers that you've gotten so far today in these classified briefings?
No.
Yeah?
That was a joke.
Okay.
That was a joke.
And were any questions asked that were compelling? Like, were any questions answered?
There was not a single piece of intelligence that was shared that even rises to the level of any other briefing that we've seen on Ukraine, China, anything. There was no serious, this was not a serious intelligence briefing. This was a communication of opinion. And if this administration wants to go to war, they need to go get it from Congress. And if Republicans want to defend this argument that cocaine is a weapon, they can go vote on that. But this is kind of this is just conjecture at this point.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
So the Bronx technically was not a no. The Bronx was a hell no. Emily, where is this story going?
Well, here we just got the former bartender's perspective on whether or not cocaine is a weapon. So that's always helpful. I think Hegseth is a good example. I mean, this guy is just one of the reasons Trump chose him is so that he could do what he just did, which was be very, very effective on television, coming across and saying, hey, we did what we had to do. Lots of satisfied customers. I mean, Hegseth is very, very good at that. And if you're the average American, not, the super politically engaged person, but the average American, you look at that and say, they're doing their best. And then if you're the average American and AOC comes across your screen, you might say, I don't know what to think. And I feel like that's where so many people are right now, which is they just don't know who to believe about any of this. So Hegseth will satisfy MAGA, and AOC will satisfy the left, and Chuck Schumer will satisfy the left, and everyone else is just sort of looking at this and is like, okay, well, do they know who's being blown up? Because if they do, great. But they should. I mean, listen, continuing to not get a declaration of war, it hasn't really politically destroyed anyone in the past. Yeah. I mean, we've accustomed ourselves to being very liberal with war powers.
Right.
So I think they're emboldened by that, sadly.
Emily, I don't read the chat, but I glance at it, and one of the community members said AOC is a member of Congress. She's not a bartender. Show some respect.
I said former bartender. Okay. And by the way, I'm from Wisconsin. There's nothing that is more respectful I could say to a human being than that they're a bartender. Okay. So I say that with great respect.
Wisconsin, we call them taverns, right?
Yeah, we call them taverns. We also call them priests. A bartender, you can call them a priest.
Yeah. Okay. Switching topics again slightly. You use AI all the time in your life, right?
No, I honestly don't, but I should be better about it.
You don't. Okay. Well, what are you doing to improve your value as an employee and to build your job skills? What do you do in that respect? Anything?
Mark, I say a nice thing about Megan once a day.
Megyn Kelly, yeah. That improves your job prospects, not necessarily your skills. Our next guest has figured out a way to use the powerful tool of AI to help workers improve their job prospects, improve their skills, to keep their skills cutting edge. And this is my big thing about AI. And I said it today on Next Up as a understanding of AI. The goal isn't to have AI replace human intelligence, the human spirit, human creativity. The idea is to use AI to empower us to do even more, to harness the great magic of human ingenuity and imagination to this extraordinary technology of efficiency. And there's no greater area you could use it in, as far as I'm concerned, than allowing people to develop their job skills. Because, of course, one of the great fears about AI is that it's going to put people out of business. Well, imagine out of jobs. Imagine if instead of being put out of a job, you can get an even better job with using AI. Thus, I say our next guest is a modern day sorcerer. He's a magician. He's going to change the world. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you the one and only Sam Caucci. Sam, welcome in. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Was my introduction of you too grandiose?
Yeah, you set the bar high, but it's okay. I'm ready.
Sam is the CEO of, is it called One Huddle? Is that the name of your company?
One Huddle.
One Huddle. Tell people why it's called One Huddle and what an AI-powered platform that gamifies job training, what that means. Who's it for? How do they use it?
Sure. Yeah. So, Mark, like a lot of folks here that have been through all types of workforce training in their careers. And, I started One Huddle because I just sat through too many of those end of year, watch the module, take the quiz things. I know that there's probably some people here that got to get that stuff done before the end of the year. And so what One Huddle, what we do is we take any type of onboarding, employee skilling, and we have an AI engine that can take all of that material and transform it into a mobile game. So think Duolingo for work. Think learning your job by playing quick burst trivia games. And it makes access to skilling more accessible to more workers, which very important today, given how quickly work is shifting, jobs are changing. And as a game, it creates an environment where workers can compete. So the kind of the core idea behind One Huddle is everybody's got game. And if you let everybody play, you'll be able to better unlock the talent you have within your four walls.
So, Sam, first of all, I'm pretty sure I know what skilling is, but I've never heard it. Is skilling just learning job skills? Is that what that means?
Yeah, we're making a big push here to kind of take back, what really always should have been there. Training just doesn't work, and the reality is, and we can point to the reason why most training programs have failed, because in America today, 91% of workforce training is compliance or risk mitigation. It's not enhancing the existing skills of a worker. Right. So, at One Huddle, we talk to brands a lot more about training is one thing, onboarding is one thing, safety stuff is one thing. But what we really need today is brands that skill workers up for either the job that they're in or the next job that they may be moving to.
Does One Huddle work for any industry, any business?
Sure. So, we're in about a dozen verticals today, from bartenders. We're just talking about bartenders, right, Emily, with Tao Hospitality Group, to sales reps at Madison Square Garden, to healthcare workers in hospital environments, to even fighter pilots in the U.S. Air Force. So very horizontal, a lot of different industries, a lot of fun. Yeah.
All right. I say this a little bit tongue in cheek, but serious. Could One Huddle help podcasters, video podcasters, get better at their jobs?
Again, knowledge is the foundation of any skill. Especially we do a lot with public speaker keynote training for folks that have to either learn a format or acquire information quickly. I was just in DC doing work on the Hill with folks preparing for Hill Days, where folks had to go up and talk to a member of Congress and present their business or their perspective on a bill and do it quickly, cleanly, and to the point. So, of course, absolutely.
Okay. So if MK Media said Mark and Emily don't really have the skills required for the future, and they want to take you on, become a customer or client of One Huddle, just walk us through. Like, what would Emily and I get out of that? How would it work?
Yeah, so you could take. So what One Huddle does is you would take any of your existing one-pagers, PowerPoint decks, guidebooks, and you can import that into One Huddle just like you might prompt ChatGPT. And One Huddle's AI will take that information. It also could be links to your website or pages on your website, and it will transform that material into a series of trivia games. Then it will drop those trivia games out over time to your audience to skill them up on topics. And just like, use another example, a restaurant. Let's stick with bartender. We got a new menu item. We got a new cocktail. We got to get everybody to know it quickly. Chef can just upload the recipe card, and our platform turns it into a game, gets the people that need it, creates a leaderboard in competition. First one to win, like that's why it's One Huddle. First one to win, unlock some type of prize, and then we move on to the next game.
Emily, question for Sam.
Political implications of this are sort of interesting, and I'm sure you've seen the way that that's played out with other platforms. How do you envision that in the next, let's say, couple of years? I know this stuff is moving really quickly, and that's part of what's scary and exciting about it.
Yeah, on the AI, I would say it's actually two fronts to your point, Emily. One, the law is even ready for mobile technology for workers. Nonetheless, AI, like today, workers in America can't even voluntarily skill up on company training without employers compensating the worker, which blocks a lot of workforce access because a lot of our laws never envisioned a world of internet or mobile. So I think the first one is about access. 2 in 3 Americans don't have a college degree. It means they're not on LinkedIn. It means they probably don't have a desktop at home that they can access skilling or training or development and ongoing learning. So that's the first piece, is we need to change rules that block workers who want to get better every day.
Right.
On the AI front, there's a lot of bad actors. I mean, no doubt about it. Workday just got a massive class action suit. Interesting for everybody to check out. They just got sued because their algorithms are proving that they're sorting and stacking candidates based off, maybe some stuff they're not supposed to do that based off of. And so I think there's some bad actors around AI. I think the good use of AI today is focused on just like I use Netflix as an example, or any kind of streaming service. If you're watching something, it's assuming this is a track you want to go down. It's not asking you, do you like comedies? It's not asking you if you like dramas. It's hitting you with the information based off your behaviors. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, around work when it comes to training and development.
All right, quick word, Sam, stand by. Emily, stand by. One more sponsor for us. We talked about cooking just a bit ago. ChefIQ.com, 30% off the entire site. Promo code 2way for their Chef IQ Sense wireless cooking thermometer that takes all the guesswork out of cooking. Put it in your beef, your pork, your fish, whatever, chicken, prime rib, whatever you're making. Chef IQ does the rest. Their Chef IQ Sense wireless thermometer is available now at, again, 30% off everything on the site. Buy one for yourself, buy one for people on your list who are either great cooks or maybe not so great cooks and can use the help cooking this holiday season. You can get all your shopping done right now. Go on chefiq.com, 30% off. Use the promo code 2way, chefiq.com. And just as I said, Sam is a little bit of a sorcerer in figuring out how to use AI to help workers get trained up, skilled up. This is a bit of magic too. I've got one, and again, it's just very easy. Put the app on your phone, put it in. It tells you when to take it out, when to turn it, how long to let it rest. Again, chefiq.com, promo code 2way. Sam, if people want to see a demo of how this works, either for themselves or maybe they own a company or an organization, how can people see this in action?
Sure. If you go on over to the number one huddle, like a football huddle.co, you can sign up for a demo. We'll send it your way to check it out.
Okay. Grateful to you for being on, Sam. Appreciate it. And really, you think of all the great uses of AI. It can write a body limerick, sure, but who gets helped by that? Helping figure out how to better train the workforce is one of the huge crises in America today. And this is as good a use of AI of anything I've heard. So, Sam, thank you. Grateful to you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Emily.
Emily, tell me a little bit about how you predict the Susie Wiles story will play tomorrow. Will it be all over the place, or is it done?
The circling of the wagons, as Julian mentioned, I think is a strong signal that there's no longer a question of whether she stays. Susie Wiles is staying, period. That has been telegraphed, bearing, maybe there's some black swan event coming out. Now, the media is going to be fascinated with every little tidbit of this, and you know how this works, Mark. The Epstein stuff, there's going to be a million little subplots that continue to get play, but this had a 24-hour expiration date as a big picture headline.
I agree with you with the one caveat, which is if the guy plays audio tapes on Anderson Cooper tonight, and the audio tapes make it clear it's not out of context and not off the record, and maybe even more than they included in the story, then I think Susie, as Ricky Ricardo would say, would have some splaining to do of how she could say it was taken out of context. I doubt it's going to show that. But let's see what happens. And Emily, or again, remind people when your program's on and how they can watch, listen, enjoy.
We're on live when Mark is at the gym. So Mondays and Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Mark has joined us from the gym, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, and tell him about the shirt I wore last time.
Oh, he was wearing a Cubs shirt, which is like very offensive.
It was a Cubs Murakami shirt.
It
Japanese Murakami.
One of my friends reached out to me to say how chic the shirt was, Mark.
Yeah,
so
good.
big dub for you on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, after party live 10 p.m. Mondays and Wednesdays.
Okay. Grateful to Emily for being here, and for Julian here earlier, and of course for Sam. Sam? Let's get the name right. No. Yeah, Sam. There you go. Right now, you can turn over to Michael Moynihan's show, The Moynihan Report. His guest, my friend Devin Spurgeon. Now I'm getting that name wrong too. Devin Archer. Devin Spurgeon, someone else. Devin Archer, businessman and great communicator. There's Devin. Devin and Michael right now, and then I'll be back 9 a.m. tomorrow for the morning meeting, 9 a.m. Eastern time. We'll see you then. Emily, grateful to you. Have a great night, everybody. Go watch Devin.